Thank you very much for that warm reception. Thank you very much, Maureen, for inviting me down. I'm really honored to be here, and I'm also going to not stray far because I'm tethered here. I'm really honored to be here. It's great to be back in Sarasota. Great to see a lot of my old friends, Walter and Dorita, Don, Larry, Tom Dillon's here, Paul and Gracia. And Howard, thank you for coming. I have a hard act to follow because I understand Howard was here last week, so thank you very much. Just a short introduction. I'm not a clown, but I have worked for the circus. Actually, the first circus, I didn't see a circus until I worked for Ringling Brothers. So the first circus, I was hired to do their ice shows, public relations. Went to St. Louis was the first time I ever saw a circus, and it was on an afternoon, Wednesday, Thursday afternoon, probably 300 or 400 people in the huge checkered dome. It was Gunther's, the Red Show. And I sat there amazed for many, many, many reasons because I'd never seen a circus. I knew about a circus. I didn't grow up with it like half of you people out here. I didn't love it the whole time. But I was absolutely fascinated by what was happening. I wanted to try to understand what I was seeing, people flying through the air, the elephants and tigers. And the clowns. Here's one clown would come and spit water on someone else, and the 200 people would laugh. Somebody would fall down, they would laugh. They knock the clown's head off or pull his tongue out or stretch his arms or anything to dismember, to ridicule, to get in each other's face, and everybody thought it was just hilarious. And so I really couldn't figure out what everybody was laughing about. So I really got interested in clowns, and when I got involved with Clown College, I decided to go back to school and get my doctorate in cultural studies. And I wrote on the history, basically the history of Clown College, Ringling's Clown College. And since then, I've been still fascinated with clowns. And it's probably because I still don't understand them, but I'm trying. So today, but as Steve Smith said, the dean of Clown College here, that clowning is serious business. And what I want to talk about today, it is very serious. We're going to talk about good clowns, bad clowns, what we as a group think about clowns and what other people may. And I want to make sure the aisle is clear because when it gets bad, Ruth that I just met is here today because she has a fear of clowning. Why she's here today, she said, don't show clown pictures. And I said, Ruth, you're in the wrong place today. I'm sorry. But this is therapy. We're helping you through this, Ruth.
The one on the back row, okay?
Doesn't like the back row. I did warn her that these were the good clowns, okay? I want us to open up our mind a little bit and think about clowning through this. I am approaching this as a serious subject because I believe clowning is very serious. I think clowns are here for a reason other than just making kids laugh, and there's a lot of cultural reasons why we have clowns. So I said send in the clowns. I think the next line of Judy Collins' song is Don't Worry, They're Here, but I'm not sure what that would say about us. I prefer to call this the good. See, Lou, Barry Lubin, Dwayne Thorpe, and Sarasota's own Chucko, the bad. These aren't necessarily bad people. And by the way, I'm going to put the video lighting on because I think what's on the screen is much more important than you're looking at me. The bad. These aren't bad people, but they're definitely bad clowns. I like Bellio here. Okay. And the creepy. This is creepy. This is the creepiest one. It's Ronald McDonald that loves children with this little girl. So when I first talked to Maureen, she said, let's talk about creepy clowns. And I didn't know a lot about it because, so I thought I'd investigate some. So that's what we're going to talk about today, creepy clowns and circus clowns. Time magazine on August 31st wrote that there was unsubstantiated reports surfaced that clowns were spotted trying to lure children into the woods. That was in Greenville County, South Carolina. Let's stop for a minute. Not being insensitive and luring children into anything is a terrible plague that we have in our nation, but let's stop and think about what that is saying. Luring people into the woods. This is the same fable as Little Red Riding Hood, and then the wolf lures her into the woods, and then he goes to Grandma's house. He puts on a costume. She says, what a big nose you have, what a big teeth you have, what a big eyes you have. May have been the first creepy clown, I don't know, but think about it for a minute, how easy it is to turn a narrative into something that's already in our mind. How many times have you seen a movie where you go through the woods? The woods are bad places, right? From Beauty and the Beast and everywhere else. young people, young women chased through the woods. So in our culture, the woods is not only just a danger, it's a dark, hidden, forbidden space. And so what happened is, after this happened, it spread to South Carolina too. Another portion of South Carolina, to southern South Carolina. The sightings all of a sudden spread to more than 24 states. In Alabama, my home state, they arrested 7 people for making a terrorist threat connected with clown-related activities. Think about that for a minute. In our age of terrorism, now we're relating them to clowns. Penn State University students actually swarmed campus in groups looking to carry out a mass clown hunt, so there'd be no creepy clowns there. Connecticut School District banned clown costumes and symbols of terror. Let's just keep thinking of this. This is a letter sent home to parents saying, don't let your kids go into wooded areas at night and this type of thing, which is a good thing. But an armed clown hoax temporarily put a small Massachusetts clown on lockdown. It even got to the White House briefing, daily briefing, and the secretary, the press secretary at that time said, obviously this is a situation that law enforcement is taking quite seriously. We don't have time to look at it, but there's a great CNN about 3-minute piece on this creepy clown thing that's happening. So, what's going on here? Clowns. We love clowns. We know Ronald McDonald. We love Bozo. We love all those things, and all of a sudden there are sightings. Notice that no one really has lured a child into the woods or has not committed crime. There were some arrests, but it was a perceived threat, and I'm sure a real threat to children, but all of a sudden it became kind of hysterical. So let's ask the experts what they thought. Dustin Kidd, who is a sociologist at Temple University, said, the panic over clowns is a new twist on the phenomenon as old as witch hunts. Jason Seacat, who I think is a psychologist at Western New England University, said the mystery is behind the face. It scares more people because we don't know what's behind the makeup. It could be anyone or anything. I think it had to be a human, so in his mind already it's gone to something even more than human, right? And people can't see behind the mask. This guy's a clown, and he said, I won't go out anymore. I'm scared to death that somebody's going to either arrest me or shoot me or something. And Psychology Today, which is a well-respected magazine, Phil Zimbardo is a social psychologist. He said the fears come from, and I'll try this, de-individuation. It's a state in which one's identity is hidden, and that's a lot about the clown, as we know. In Nova Scotia, I think it was, Robert Bartholomew said that the fear of clowns comes from 2 things. A fear of otherness, of that being that is not like us, or that outside, that alien. Anything alien in our culture is scary. And social media. Obviously, without social media, this would have gone nowhere. And this is sort of interesting. We're not going to turn this into political discussion. But this man said it was the presidential elections. It was a crazy year. How many times have you heard it was a circus? How many times they called each other a clown, the chaos? We've heard this for a year because it was a very bizarre, whichever side you fall on, campaign. He said the politics are out of order. They're ignoring basic moral values. I predict that once the election is over, we won't hear any more about these clowns. Well, election's over, we'll see. I have seen references, obviously, to clowns in circus and negative in the last few months, and I think we all have. This was sort of interesting. There's a thing called the phantom clown theory. It attributes the proliferation of clown sightings to mass hysteria that may not even be there. And later on, we'll come back to this idea of phantom clowns. They don't know who they are. They don't really see them. They just think they saw a clown somewhere. And I thought this was very interesting. Stephen King, the horror master, said, hey guys, time to cool the clown hysteria. Most of them are good, cheer up kiddies, and make people laugh. So he's trying to calm people down. This may be approaching something of the truth of why it is such a phenomenon for a short time. The clown sightings have involved either young pranksters dressed as clowns or callers inventing clown stories. It's an adrenaline rush, it's a party, it's a game. It's a bunch of people taking selfies, a bunch of people throwing something up so they can get their million hits and all this, the virtual thing. And I think that probably had something to do with it. But a psychologist took a study. There are people that have studied bad clowns. This is not a new phenomenon. When we asked people to rate the creepiness of different occupations, the one that rose to the top of the creep list was, you guessed it, Ruth, clowns. I'm not picking on you. We're working you through this. Anybody know what that is? Can you pronounce it? Coulrophobia. I looked it up. Cool is in K-O-L. And it is the fear of clowns, okay? It is a condition. It's really real. I don't understand it, but there's a lot of people. I know Pam and Deb was saying that you had birthday parties with your children and brought clowns, and they all scattered. So it's not new. So the clown is a very, very unique individual in our society. We're not sure why. But it's not a new phenomenon. It's not new. This is kind of, again, my background is cultural studies, so I look at things culturally. That your biggest fear, all of our fears, is just the result of decades of pop cultural conditioning. For every bozo, there's a joker, there's a sweet tooth, which was a video game, a violator, which was in a magazine, I think it was a comic book, or Kefka, another villain in a video game. So creepy clowns have been in popular culture for a while. The movie Poltergeist, you know about. There was a creepy clown under the bed of what's the name? Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Now, I know these aren't the top 10 movies, but bear with me. Pennywise in Stephen King's It. That's the first time I really encountered the idea of a bad, evil clown, and that was the clown called Pennywise. Sick, serial, insane clown killer. I missed that movie. I was sorting my socks that day. Okay. We all screamed for ice cream. I can't even imagine. And Zombieland had zombie clowns. And All Hallows Eve is obviously a Halloween type movie. Okay? Benjamin Radford is an expert. It's called a cryptozoologist, whatever that is. He studies bad clowns. He studies the phenomenon of what happens when these, what we think are good, happy kids things, are really evil, nefarious creatures. And these are the top 10 bad clowns, and they're bad, so bear with me. Number 10, this clown is called the Northampton Clown. In Northampton, England, this guy just appeared out of nowhere and would go away, didn't bother anybody, didn't do anything, he just came and went, and he thought he ranked in the top 10 of weird clowns. This one, I'm going to make it real quick. Crotchety the Clowns, it was public access. He was arrested for obscenity. We'll go past that. Shakes the Clown. This was Bob Goldthwait, I think's his name. He was called, and I thought this was too good, they call him the Citizen Kane of alcoholic clown movies. I'm not making this up, it really isn't it? This is, again, the Phantom Clowns. We don't know where they are. They just appear and scare people and leave. They're phantoms. Mad Magazine had a Frenchie, the clown. Very evil. Unfortunately and sadly, this is Pogo, John Wayne Gacy, that did go to lure children, killed 33 young men and boys in Chicago area. And I think what is the creepiest of all, this is his self-portrait. And that is a serious creep, a terrible disaster. That is Tim Curry from the Rocky Horror Picture Show, and he was Pennywise in a TV version of Pennywise of It. We'll go past this one because this is called Ouchie the S&M Clown, and it says, we'll go past it, but I have to say what it said about Ouchie here. He's America's premier provider of adult clown services. We're going past that one. I really am not making this up. This is interesting, though. Mr. Punch from Punch and Judy. I didn't realize that they call him the wife-abusing serial killer that dates back to the 1600s. And, of course, the number one on Heath is the Joker, okay? There's a comic book now. There's a comic book just come out, 2017, called Clowns Gone Bad, a coulrophobic coloring book for adults. Okay? I think this is an interesting comment. It was by in Gentleman's Quarterly. I think it's something to ponder on a little bit, but we'll come back to it. But I'm going to read it for you. The War on Clowns. He said that we've just put out a war on saying clowns are bad. The War on Clowns has been dizzyingly effective. Enrollments at clown colleges are way, way down. And after 146 years, Ringling Brothers and Barnum and Bailey are, which probably should be is, shutting down for good in May. The circus. We have literally destroyed the clown's natural habitat. I think it's worth thinking about for a while. We'll keep going. We'll come back to it. So at this point, and I really hadn't timed this out, and we'll come back to it, but any comments on all of that? Did you know they were that way? Because it's supposed to be a conversation, even though I overtalk always. Yes, sir, to the crowd.
Any chance you actually know what a cryptozoologist is?
No, but this man up here is the leading cryptozoologist. He's a criminologist too. I'm not sure. I'll look it up. It said cryptozoologist. I didn't look that up, but maybe she knows. Yes.
Yeah, cryptozoologist is kind of not a real zoologist, but they go after strange or unusual, like Bigfoot. They go after
Okay.
Bigfoot in the Loch Ness.
Ah, okay.
Where Coleman is like a favorite
Right.
one.
Loch Ness and all
Yeah,
that,
they
right?
go after possibly.
Okay, there's your answer. Thank you.
Can you repeat the answer?
Yes, I'm sorry. It's like a zoologist because it's dealing with living things, but it goes after strange or weird, the crypto, such as the Loch Ness Monster, Bigfoot, and those things, and the creepy clowns would fall in that category of being sort of supernatural. Yes, sir.
In your research, we know about the court jesters, but how far back do clowns go?
Hold that thought because we're going to get to it.
Okay, I'll hold it.
Yes, hold that thought. Anything more about the creepy, Dorita?
Did you do anything about looking at the chimps' natural fear of clowns? Because chimps are naturally afraid of clowns.
No, I didn't know that. No, I did not. That's interesting. The chimps?
Chimps, if you got a chimp loose, the clowns just disappear.
I didn't know that. After 20 years, I have that because when the chimps come through, everybody against the wall. You give the chimps right away, but I guess they don't give the clowns right away. Interesting. Yes, ma'am.
What about rodeo clowns? Rodeo.
Rodeo clowns, very good. I would call them real. I think they're actual clowns, professional clowns for what they do, but they still are clowns. They look like clowns. Is anybody surprised by all of these? I did not know there was that much into the bad clowns, and the cryptozoologists looked at all this and wrote this down.
Musical group, Insane Clown Posse. There's a musical group.
Okay.
Called Insane, they call them ICP, Insane Clown Posse. It's
P-O-S-S-E?
yeah, Posse, yeah.
Insane Clown Posse. There's a rock group. They, I missed that one too.
There's a whole
Okay.
culture onto it.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Just thinking about people like the Lone Ranger, who's supposed to be a hero, but hid behind a mask. And you talked about the fact that clowns hide behind their makeup.
I didn't know how far to take this because you could stay here, you wouldn't want to, you could stay here for days talking about this. Masking is very, very important. And let's bring it up now. I think masking, and I was going to put it in here, but I didn't want to just become the professor that just make my students crazy. It really is about masking. And the clown's mask, if I can digress for a minute or so, there's some theory about the carnivalesque, the idea of the medieval carnival. And one of the great theoreticians said that how a human sees the world and interacts with the cosmos, people around us, through our senses, through our eyes, through our ears, through our nose, through our mouth, our digits, and we walk around. And then, of course, there's the scatological stuff. But his point being that clowns are abhorrent to the human perfect ideal form. And that's what the clowns emphasize. Where the clown meets their world is where we do. They have the big eyes, the big nose, the big ears, the big mouth thing, and the huge feet. And the scatological part and the genitalia type area. Earlier clowns in medieval times would emphasize that. So it's kind of like it's a ridicule of the perfect human. It's a ridicule of that. And with a mask, what I find about mask, I was going to put it up here, we love mask. Lone Ranger, Robin Hood, Batman, Zorro. Let's get down to a football player in their mask, a catcher's mask. Let's get down to astronauts that wear this thing. If you just start looking at things that change people's face, you'll be surprised. And makeup. you are emphasizing those same areas a lot. Your mouth, your eyes, makeup. So as humans, we do look at the world, rest of the world, and people, and clowns seem to sort of make fun of that. What big eyes you have, Grandma, what big teeth you have, what big nose you have. So it's all fitting in that clowns do play a role, and they're sort of, well, I call them in here a little later on, sort of society's alter ego. They're sort of the other, they sort of our mirror the other way. So let's go and talk a little bit about real clowns. I'm using the word real because I'm in a circus community. I live at the circus. These are what I'm calling professionals. I could have called it something else. But these are the clowns that we know and like. Let's talk about them and how we fell in love with them, and you forget the creepy for a while. Clowns are found in virtually every culture and are among the most widespread character types in mythology and popular culture throughout the world and throughout history. This is one of the oldest cultural figures in the world. Anonymous, a society without a clown is a society without a heart and soul. It's kind of like the angel on our shoulder. It makes fun of us, and we reflect back on the clown. This is a short list. Carnival fools, mountebanks, charlatans, stage clowns, lords of misrule, that was the medieval carnival also, Puck and Touchstone of Shakespeare, Harlequin or Arlecchino and Puccinella from the Italians' Commedia dell'arte. Xanians were there too. Joey's is a short for any clown. It's a nickname named after Joseph Grimaldi we'll talk about. And you want to get in folklore, perhaps Burr Rabbit, he's a trickster. A lot of things talk about clowns and tricksters. These are people that test us all the time. But my favorite are court jesters. What was the one job of a court jester? Anybody? To ridicule the king. Think about that for a minute. To ridicule the king. He's the only person in the king's court that could absolutely make fun of the king and get away with it. It wasn't just sanctioned, it was encouraged. And that's being interpreted a lot by the jester being the people's voice. It gave a voice to people that weren't there. And the clown could say anything about the king. It's what people were thinking but were afraid to say, but he could. So it was sort of a social valve, a safety valve in society to let it out. And they have a long history, but they did all kinds of things. One of my favorite stories, and I don't remember what jester or what king, but a king did get mad at and banished him from England to France, said you may never step foot on English soil again. And a week later, the clown comes back and he has these big sod strapped onto his feet. He said, you're not supposed to step on English soil. He said, I'm not. This soil is from France. So it was just, even in the king's face, just, there you go. But you talk about clowning as we know it, and real or professional clowning, or the tradition of clowns like you brought up. Most historians, I think, I say most, I believe, really date back to the characters from the Commedia dell'arte. This was a time that people dressed up in the characters. You really had characters. You had El Capitano, you had a Puccinella, you had a Harlequin, you had El Doctor. And they were really a spoof on on high society. The well-heeled, the elite, the doctors, the actors. And they were spoofs, and most of them, not here, but most of them, they were really recognized as having a half mask. That kind of got into the idea of masking of clowns. And that went on for a long time, but in, I think it's around 1800, the historians credit the first clown that's known as his title was just clown, was Joseph Grimaldi at Covent Garden and Sadler's Well in London. He'd been on stage his whole life, and he was known as the first clown. He looks like a clown. He was the first white face, but he did have the triangles of red, as you would see in maybe an Auguste clown. But the interesting about this clown, he's not being funny. This is not Ronald McDonald. He's not playing with kids. He's holding a bottle of wine, and he's a drunkard. And he made fun of people. He would yell at people at the audience. It was like a real bad Don Rickles, and he was like out of control. And that was his role, is he's playing this role of having a front to everyone. 25 years later, a Frenchman named Jean-Gaspard Dubois created Pierrot, which is a French version of a Pedrolino, the Commedia dell'arte.
That's confusing. The dates on the bottom.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, that's because I didn't proof it. I don't know what the dates were. It was, I think it was 25. I'm sorry about that. It was 25 years, about 1825. I'm really not sure how that, and I've looked at this 15 times. Thank you, Ruth. That's because she wasn't looking at the clown. She was,
Good catch, Rodney.
right. So what about the clown that we know today, the real one, as I'm calling it that? The birth of what we call the modern circus was Philip Ashley's riding exhibition in London in 1768 near Blackfriars Road. It was a riding exhibition, and instead of riding up and down and having stands this way, he built a circle so the horses could go in a circle and you could see everyone around it. And it was a trick riding show. And he actually introduced a clown called Fortinelli, and this clown was there to break up the tension of the thrill acts. He also had a strong man. And Philip Ashley, made the announcement in a riding outfit, and he was the riding master or the ring master. Most historians credit that this is the first circus, and they had the elements of a circus: a ring, a performing animal, a clown, some kind of acrobatics, and a ring master, okay? Then in the United States, in April 3rd, 1793, John Bill Ricketts, who had worked for Ashley, came over and opened a show in Philadelphia. And Ricketts was, I'm sorry, that's a portrait by Gilbert Stuart, the same one that George Washington poster, kind of looks like him. This is actually not from Philadelphia, but I was trying to see if there's a little pointer here. It says here, Clown to the Horsemanship by Mr. Durang. Mr. Durang was John Durang, is recorded as America's first native-born clown. So clowns were always with the circus. But they played a role that was they weren't silly clowns, they were funny clowns, and they mocked and ridiculed other writers and things. But in the American circus up to the 1870s, they were usually solo clowns or one or two in a show. It wasn't what we know now. And Dan Rice was David Carleon is the circus historian that wrote a book called Dan Rice, the Most Famous Man You Never Heard Of, and a lot of people credit him for coming up with the Uncle Sam costume. It's been debunked a little bit, so I'm not sure. But it's kind of interesting. He's called the original humorist as he appeared in his Great Union speech. These were political satirists. These were what we know now as the Daily Show. These were, again, David Letterman type stuff. They weren't silly clowns with kids. They were serious commentators like the jesters, and that's upholding the history of the clown, okay? And it wasn't until the 1870s when Ringling came along, then the four-paw, all the huge shows, the railroad circus, a three-ring circus, that we started seeing clowns becoming sweetened for the kids. This is around the turn of the 18th to the 19th century. This clown is named George Hartzell, and he's called the children's favorite clown. David Carleon has a whole theory, which I've heard him talk about, that the circus itself was almost adult entertainment. All of it was for adults. You didn't take kids, and they kind of figured out why to have the mother and father, when they had families of 7 or 8 kids, why not get more tickets? Built a three-ring circus, had a lot of space in between the rings, in the rings, and around the hippodrome track you need to fill with something. So let's make them silly, funny, bright, colorful clowns, and make them children's clowns. This is from Barnum and Bailey's show when it went to Europe around the same time. And it's called A Child's Dream. A smiling face is multiplied 1 million times a year. And if you look, there are a lot of clowns in there. So it started, clowns as we know them today, or as we've accepted, was actually sort of a marketing idea. The clowns were there, they still did the things, but now we made them fun for children. We made them sanitized a little bit. And then in the 20th century, clowns actually taught themselves. There was no way to teach clowns. And here's some of there's so many of them, I just picked out what I could. Frank Slivers, this is all from Ringling, most of them. He did a one-man baseball game. He had the whole arena floor to himself, and he would be the pitcher, the catcher, the batter, the first baseman. He did all of this. Lou Jacobs, as you know, Sarasota's own great, these should be the great clowns, not the good ones. Emmett Kelly, of course, Otto Griebling, Sarasota's own Jack LeClaire. Dwayne Thorpe, if I'm not mistaken, because I was with the show and I knew Dwayne, I think he was the last of what I call the self-made clowns. He was the last clown before Clown College, the last clown to be on either Ringling unit post Ringling College. Prince Paul, knew him a little bit, and Frosty Little was a boss clown for many, many years with the show. Ben, in 1968, Clown College. Let's stop and think about that for a minute. This just happened to be the class of 87. Clown College went, I think, from 68 to 97. I should remember that because that's what I spent 2 years writing a paper on. But what I really want to write a dissertation wasn't so much about the history of clowns, but clowning is about breaking the rules, being destructive, breaking the rules. And so it was academic, of course. So my academic question is, how can you teach people to break the rules by having a strict academic structure that they have to follow the rules or they get kicked out? I will tell this story about a very wonderful clown named Peter Petoskey. I look at him as the absolute ultimate clown. Peter was on the Red Show for a long time. He was in Las Vegas at a show called Mad Hatton. And Peter had this thing, he'd bring people from the audience that you've seen 100 times, but Peter was really out there. He would pick bald-headed men, he'd bring them up and he would lick their head. And so everybody like, whoa, whoa. Well, it was great to Peter because you don't do that. You don't go around licking people's head, particularly in this day and time. So they said, Peter, you can't do that anymore. Don't do that. That's not good. So next show came, he got a bald-headed guy. He licked his head. And it was Dick Money said, Peter, you can't do that. I'm not kidding. You're going to get fired. I'm not kidding. And it's like the scorpion joke. He came back up, he licked the head, and they fired him. They said, Peter, why'd you do that? He said, that's what clowns do. And he lost his job because he was so true to himself as a real clown to get in people's face and do that. He didn't last on Ringling that long because Ringling has much nicer clowns, family clowns, clowns for children. I think some of the bad ones, this is strictly subjective. T.J. Tatters is, of course, Steve Smith that was here at Clown College, lived here for many years. Peggy Williams, Clown College graduate in 1973, acknowledged as the first female clown from Clown College to join a circus. Scott Linker, I thought, was a great clown, somewhere a mixture between a Harpo Marx and maybe Emmett Kelly and some others. I just thought he did a great job as a character clown. Barry Grandma Lubin with Big Apple Circus. Chuck O's here with Circus Sarasota. David Kaiser lives in Florida. He's been on the show for many years. And Pat Cashin, I put him in there. I didn't know Pat Cashin, but he was the clown that kept a great blog that people really followed Pat's work and what he did. He's very knowledgeable, and he died very unexpectedly from an unexpected disease, like a matter of a couple of months or so. And of course, Ruth Chaddock. There's your Ruth. Ruth Chaddock, who lives in Texas now, has been with the show since like 1973. So, those were the good ones. We didn't talk much about just the bad ones. Those are the creepy ones. So, to kind of wind this down so we can have a good conversation about what's happening here. So let's kind of look at circus clowns as we know and love today, and then why are there still others out there terrorizing children and doing those kind of things? And these are just thoughts. These are just ways to look at it. So let's get back to what we talked about. What's the nature and the function of a clown? Any clown. It's subversive. The first thing my dissertation director told me, he said, you're writing about clowns, you're writing about a subversive. Their behavior is subversive. They break the rules and they're mischievous. They warm our hearts by breaking our rules. So the clown itself is just a rule breaker we love. And they do it through ridicule, parody, and satire. They're in your face and make fun of you. In the circus act, you'll have a strongman act, and the clown will come out and make fun of that act. It is their role in the circus and outside of the circus to ridicule and have parody and to satirize things. Basically, they have bad social behavior. They spit at people. They split. Uh-oh. Ruth is getting so worried about this, she's calling herself. I'm sorry, Ruth. I just met her, but she's different. Okay, bad social behavior. Clowns misbehave. That's what they do. And the clown rebels against all forms of authority. How many times have you seen a clown act in the circus about a fireman, a nurse, a doctor, a police, soldiers, anything? They make fun of people. The firehouse gag, these are very famous gags. Anything's an authority, and it only goes one way. The clown down below can make fun of the ones up above. They represent the powerless. Think about this for a minute. Lucille Ball doing We're Just a Couple of Swells. A couple of hobos, tramps, whatever we'd call them, pretending to be in New York as a couple of swells. It's okay to do that. You're smiling, you're smiling. It wouldn't be funny if someone up there, if a Rockefeller or billionaire or Donald Trump made fun of the lowly. It only goes one way because they speak for the powerless. They say, this is what we think, and look at your rules, because your rules are kind of silly if you stop and look at them. And they're resilient. Knock them down, they're better than weebles, wobbles and weebles. They come, you can't knock a clown down. You ever seen a clown killed anywhere? They don't. They're forever. And it's sanctioned. That's what we want. We want clowns to do that. We want clowns to be our misbehaving, mischievous children that we love. Because that helps us understand the rules by breaking them. When you break the rules, you know what the rules are. And by nature, then, it would make the clown an outcast or a renegade. And it represents the other, our society's alter ego. And finally, it's a beloved but marginalized figure on the fringes of mainstream. You want clowns, but you want them sort of in their place, or if they come into your home for a party, they're there, then they leave. Heard a great story that at one clown's wedding, another clown asked the priest in the middle of the wedding, could he drop his pants, as clowns would do. And the priest said, well, normally no, but since you're a clown, that would probably be okay. We let them do that. Steve Smith told that story, but we let them do that. So let's talk about one other thing, then I will close it down. So where are we today, and why is all this happening? Or does it make any sense that it's happening? Ringling Brothers, as you know, no news, they'll be closing down. Go back for a minute, think about the guy who said that we've closed down, we've destroyed the clown's natural habitat. So in society, where do you see circuses now? Even with Ringling on the road, where do you see circus acts? Super Bowl, Olympics opening, World Cup a few years ago, the opening was all about Cirque du Soleil. You see it in theaters, you see it on stages, you see it in a lot of places outside of the circus ring. Even Britney Spears, rock and roll, had an album called Circus, and she opened it up on live TV, debuted it with Big Apple Circus. Pippin on Broadway, I heard it's just wonderful. Gypsy Snyder helped choreograph it, and she's the daughter of one of the original founders of the Pickle Family Circus in San Francisco. And over here you have Kiss. I have some friends that actually worked on that concert. They call Psycho Circus, and look what they are. They all have on their mask, and they all look evil. They really are rock and roll creepy clowns. And finally, I don't follow Pink that much, but Pink does this in her concert. She actually is very good at this. She flies, she does an aerial act while she's singing. You can see she has a microphone on. So, if you'll take the suggestion that maybe the clown is now, like all other acts, spilled outside the circus ring. I'm not sure where that leaves the circus. I'm sure there's a lot of reasons why Ringling closed and Big Apple. But I think the circus as a cultural exclusive entity has really now spread out. We used to talk about the circus, drew from the ballet, they drew from gymnastics, they drew from the arts, they drew from music, and that made the circus. We're seeing a reversal of that trend. Ballet is pulling from the circus. Stage shows are pulling from the circus. There are over between 300 and 400 circus schools for kids now that learn juggling and all of that. So the circus is popular, and it's out there, and it's being supported, or it keeps running because of kids as a grassroots movement. And the Smithsonian Institution is having its festival this year, and they're celebrating circus arts, not circuses in America, circus history, but circus arts as a grassroots movement. So that's going on. So my question was, so where are the clowns? People are learning this, that, and the other, where are the clowns? So if the clowns are forced out into this crazy world we live in, this social world, this world where nothing is too off the chart, nothing is too crazy for anybody, it's a lot worse than swallowing goldfish and others, are we really that surprised that there are creepy clowns that they keep popping up? And with that, I want you to talk, because I certainly have talked enough, but as you can tell, this is it's serious business. So Any answers in there anybody finds? We have creepy clowns, we have clowns we love, and we're in the middle of all of that changing right now. I don't have to tell you that if you follow the circus at all. Any ideas? I know you're hoping for a great answer. I don't have a great answer, only questions.
Creepy clowns were even there when you saw that poster of the children around the clown, but the two clowns in the back are holding the curtains.
Yeah.
together. Your perception is, well, are they good clowns or are they luring kids back as that gets deployed? There's a whole bunch of things about perception. But what you have today is you have the clowns that are on the media, such as Carrot Top, and your comedians who are a little bit different or off.
Right.
The guy used to smash the watermelons. I mean, this is all
Right.
clown stuff, but they are taking on a different persona. Where we're going with creepy clowns, they're here to stay, because it's our perception.
I think in the kind of culture we live in today, I think you can expect a lot of things that what 10, 15 years ago we'd felt were really off the wall, and the clown really fits in it because it's marginalized on the edges and can get away with stuff behind a mask. A couple of other points. Yes, sir.
Out of curiosity, do you make anything out of Donald Trump not attending the Washington Correspondents' Dinner?
We probably couldn't have a great political discussion. Yes. No. Yes. To be honest, I think that the press is really not that kind of Trump now, and I think he does enjoy being around people and crowds. You've seen through his rallies here and other places in Florida and all. He likes people that agree with him, and he kind of gets off on the rallies, and to be at a place where you're going to have everyone that's always knocking you down. He probably just said, if I were him, if I were his PR guy, I'd say, why are you putting yourself to this? Just let them talk about you, because if you get up there, you know they're going to say something going to make you mad, or just why put yourself through it? That's what I would think. I'm not sure why that came up in the discussion about clowns, but I won't make that comment.
You talked about the emperor and the jester.
The emperor and the jester, yeah. Which is a good point. So in our day and time, do figures of authority, presidents all, do they have their favorite? They have people, this roast or something that you've seen, they really make fun of the presidents and all this stuff. That is straight out of the jester thing, because it's sanctioned and the president laughs and all that. I don't know. I don't have an answer. Thoughts? Any other thoughts about this? Have we learned? Yes, sir.
One category you did not bring up, the class clown. I'm serious. It makes them be the clown in school. They're beloved. They're not the scary clown. They're funny. They're imaginative. But psychologically, where do they come from?
They break the rules. I don't know. I mean, they are on the margin of that class. They're not following the rules like everyone else. I'm not sure. But the class clown, everyone used to say you should go to clown college, and everyone I've talked to in clown college, most of them were not class clowns. They were just regular people who want to get into it for another reason. Yes, sir.
A quick comment, when you said that, I was in high school labeled the master of mirth,
Uh-huh.
I'm the class clown. And under my picture in the yearbook, it says, a clown's face is happy, but he could be the saddest person in the world.
That's
What I noticed about myself and class clowns, it's like acting. You take on another persona. You're allowed to get away with more with that persona than you could as your normal self.
right.
So when you said class clowns, they come from people who want to be a little different,
Yeah.
and they don't mind doing it, but they have to be called a class clown,
Right.
or else they're called a fool.
Yes, I think that's very good.
They're laughing at me, they're laughing at the clown.
Yes. And they wouldn't call you a fool. They call you the class clown, which is again sanctioned and said, okay, you're breaking the rules and nothing bad's going to happen. You got to sit in the corner or write your name 100 times or something. Yes. Yes, ma'am.
Where I live in Michigan, there's a fellow that he was disfigured from a burn. And
Yeah.
he goes around to the parks in a clown uniform, the kids love him.
Ah.
But if he came there just with his disfigured face, everybody would run from him.
That's interesting. Very interesting. Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, sometimes I have found that people with the most serious problems run around the most. as if they're trying to, deny the problem or hide from it.
Thoughts on that? She said people that have a serious problem or going through some serious things often laugh it off or clown around as probably not to face it or to find another way to express themselves. Dorita.
You talked about them calling attention to things, but they're also used to divert attention from things.
Yes, like you asked about the rodeo clown. Yeah, that's what you do.
Or you've got a problem or a crisis, you use clowns to divert attention.
Yeah.
Because people will follow them.
Right. The whole room would change tremendously if a clown walked in now. I should have set that up, but I didn't. If a clown walked in now, because they just have this, they suck the oxygen out of the room. They all of a sudden I'm not sure what we all think. I think you're a little anxious. What are they going to do? I've been in meetings where clowns disturbed them. The meeting, I thought, oh my God, I hope they don't call me out because I know these people. And you start hiding your face. Yes.
You just reminded me of Red Skelton.
Yes.
Yeah, he was a clown, but I almost think of him as a sad kind of.
No, he was great. He loved clowns. He when he wasn't dressed like a clown, Freddie the Freeloader or something. Yeah. I don't know if it's a myth or not that there was a great urban legend, I guess you'd call it, about Grimaldi, the great clown. Supposedly he was all depressed and ready to commit suicide, and he went to a psychologist, psychiatrist, doctor, whatever, and he says, I just don't live anymore, blah, blah, blah. And the doctor said, I know while the cure, you ought to go down to the Sadler's Well here and see Grimaldi. And he said, I am Grimaldi. So I don't think it's true, but I think that is, a point was making through some kind of narrative or some kind of urban legend or fable. Yes, ma'am.
You started to mention this and then you stepped away, but what does cause a person to want to go to clown college? I mean,
That's interesting, and Larry Kellogg has worked probably more with them than I have up here. What I found were people that I know that I've asked. Peggy Williams was going to be an educator. She wanted to do better things, make the world a better place, and she could do it through clowning, and she still works with children. She still works with school and all that. There's a guy named Bill Irwin who was one of the first clowns of Pickle Family Circus in the 80s, and he also went on to Broadway. He's gotten Broadway Tonys on TV every once in a while. I'd read where I don't know him, I had read where he said that he was at Oberlin in theater, and he thought that going to clown college, he could actually learn different kind of skills, physical comedy. Larry, how would you answer that? They're all different reasons, but I know clown college started at the same time of the anti-war. At the same time in 1968, the people that put together Big Apple Circus, Michael Christensen and Paul Binder, and the Pickle Circus had all moved to San Francisco, and they were part of what was called the San Francisco Mine Troupe, which was an anti-war agitprop group in the streets of San Francisco protesting the war, again, protesting authority and those type things. And then they were jugglers and street performers and decided to go to Europe and come back. But Pickle was started, Pickle Family Circus was this small community circus. It wasn't started to entertain children or to make money or to change the circus. It was a community involvement. It was a social circus. It was about bringing change to your community by bringing into the community diversity of people who didn't have a voice and those type things. So circus has played a big role in that, as well as clowns.
on the heels of that, last year I had the opportunity to meet Wavy Gravy for his 80th birthday. He was the MC at this little event called Woodstock. And he's the one that said, what we have here is breakfast in bed for 400,000.
Right, okay.
And he made a whole career out of being a clown.
Yeah.
And he wears just no makeup, and just the nose.
Right. And sometimes that's all you need is a nose.
Yeah, but like anti-war and being
Yes.
a rebel and all that.
Yeah, it goes with the whole narrative of being outside of the mainstream and not accepting what everyone is doing and there's a better way or another way. Yes, ma'am.
Do you think that some of the fear of clowns has also come from Columbine and some of the things that have happened with these goth looks and how often these shooters have been black and kind of not society, not just mainstream?
I had not thought about that. Anyone else? What you're saying in Columbine, where people dress up in these terrible things, is that the same thing as a creepy clown or John Wayne Gacy, or is
There was a fear of clowns with some children.
before that?
Well before
Yeah.
that, yeah.
Mine starts, okay. When there's a TV show years ago, it was called The Don Amici Show.
Yeah.
And it was on, I think, Friday nights, and I would watch it before I would go to bed, and it was just like this army routine. and there was like the little clown, like little midget clown, and when they were marching right, he would go left, and when they do the down face, the rifles would knock his head off.
Right.
And he would run around the ring, and I was like terrified.
Right.
And my mother said, Ruthie, she explained to me that it's really the shirt, pull up again, it's a fake head. Intellectually I got it, but.
But you saw a guy decapitated
I
in front of
the
you.
guy decapitated and running around, and it was just like brutal.
Paul?
I had the peculiar experiences, being the director of a thing called the Great Circus Parade in Milwaukee. And we needed 100 clowns to dress the parade. Now, anybody that puts a mask on can say they're a clown.
Right.
And sometimes there's some rather nasty surprises there.
I can imagine.
What always amazed me is that there was so much talent in the 100 of the 300 that we sorted out.
Right.
And there were some people that were genuinely funny, that had the absolute right attitude towards all things. And then, of course, there's a guy with a toilet seat who thinks he's
Right.
hilarious.
And that says something. A clown in society as a cultural figure to make social comments or political. It can just be anyone with a toilet seat on his neck. Or a political clown would take a position like see on TV. I mean, the political satirists on TV with Steve Colbert and all those. They're humorous and they're are speaking out what they think. But then there's as a profession we've been talking about. These people are trained, and they're well trained, and they take it to heart. That because they don't just take a role as Brad Pitt would take a role in a movie in another movie. Here, they are the clowns. Steve Smith is T.J. Tatters, and he cannot get out of that personality when he's in that. And everybody knows he's Steve Smith, and so he's representing himself. He's not acting a role. His performance is himself being the role himself. And I think a lot of clowns certainly make the distinction. I'm a clown, and I'm always a clown, but I'm not just an actor, which reminds me real quickly. Kenneth Fell told me a story once. I'm not dropping names, but this is too funny. Kenneth Fell told me a story that Miss You came up to him, Miss You's smallest man, and said, Kenneth, I want a raise. He said, why should you get a raise? You haven't done any more work. You only do like 8 shows a week. He said, yeah, but I'm the smallest man in the world 24 hours a day. So he felt like he just, I miss you, pay me more. But if you knew Miss You, you would understand that. But a clown in a way is that way, that they are clowns. It's hard to get them out of their personality. I went to a wedding with some clowns, and they still clown around during their ceremony. They just can't get out of it. They cannot get out of it. And you guys know clowns.
I was taking a walk when I was coming back from one of your Ringling Underground events, and I found myself like in a little grotto, and there were like little creepy statues. They were like,
Oh, yes.
oh, what's up with? They weren't clowns, but they were like,
Creepies, right.
yeah, like little. It's right before, Maureen, you'll know where it is. It's right before the exit there.
Well, actually, we referenced them, Rodney referenced them in his talk.
Yeah.
Those are actual Commedia dell'arte
Yeah.
figures.
Yeah.
And many of them are identifiable as actual personalities.
But they weren't like typical clowns, but there was something.
Well, if you
Yeah.
saw the Commedia, which you talked about early, that was sort of this first sort of improvisational troops that
Right.
they were stock characters. And if you went from town to town, or actually from country to country, everyone would recognize them. So they were a very definite identity and a persona that was really given rise to our whole
Yeah.
genre of physical comedy now. Adam Sandler,
Yeah.
Robin Williams.
What's his name? Jim Carrey.
Yeah.
All of them, yeah.
So they were a very important part of this whole idea of the modern
Yeah.
clown.
Didn't expect it. It's like,
They've lived all over the estate. Mrs. Ringling had them down by the swimming pool. And I think that in their current iteration, in the it is. It's interesting. So.
Well, I can't tell
the
you.
exit, Maureen.
I can't tell you how much I enjoy talking, and you guys give me the opportunity just to say what I think. And I think your comments were very, very good, very thoughtful, and I appreciate you coming very much. Thank you very much, guys.